And welcome to another episode of the Growth Focus podcast. I'm Gary Lafferty, the host, and I will be sharing today's episode with Chris Parker, VP of Sales from Eden Data. This is the podcast where we bring tech leaders from across the globe to share their insights and their expertise into the industry, as well as revenue growth, tech, AI, and all things in between. So without further ado, Chris, it's an absolute pleasure to have you with us today. Could I ask you to just give us a little snippet about your story, where you came from, how you ended up in tech, and where you are today?
Absolutely. Appreciate the time. Thanks for having me on, Gary. My name's Chris Parker. I'm the VP of Sales at a company called Eden Data. We specialize in providing compliance, security, and data privacy solutions, professional services for startups and scale-up businesses all across the world. Most of our business is in the US. I'm based in Mexico. I'm an outlier, though. The rest of the company is in the US. My wife dragged me here 10 years ago, and here I am. I haven't looked back since. I've been in the tech space now for around about 10 years since I started my own consultancy business in Mexico, around about 9 or so years ago. Prior to that, I was a headhunter. I was a recruiter for most of my life. So that's what ultimately, as well as my wife, brought me over to Mexico to join a UK recruitment company to head up their office in their permanent recruitment in Mexico. And then my career expanded out into tech startups after that.
So what was the draw for tech then? You know, there's a fascinating story how you got over to Mexico, which is great, but to go from recruitment, go for headhunting into tech.
It was weird.
Revenue gen and sales, yes, but they're two different industries. So what was the draw, and how did you actually end up in tech?
It was kind of by accident, Gary, actually. Yeah. It was, I want to touch briefly on recruitment because I think this is overlooked, but if you're a young person looking to get into sales in any way, I really, really recommend recruitment because recruitment is a great learning experience for salespeople. It allows you to focus on the 360 sales experience. You are having to find your own business, you're having to close your own business, you're having to manage those customers they're on, you're having to get repeat business from those customers, and more importantly, your product isn't a SaaS platform, it's not a software, it's not a product, it's a person, and that person changes their mind. So you have to sell to the person, to the product as well as your customer. So I think it's a great baseline to learn to cut your teeth in sales. From there, I got up to a director of desks, director of permanent business in Latin America. And then in that, it was specifically in telecommunications. And I happened to meet somebody, a good friend of mine here in Mexico. His name's Jaime Sanchez Calderon, who was the director of MVNO negotiations in Telefonica. MVNOs is Mobile Virtual Network Operator. And at the time, in the UK, Gary, you may remember Virgin Mobile and those companies. And at the time, MVNOs were just kicking off in Mexico. It was a very early. I think we're talking 2012, 2013. Very very early days for the MVNO space. And in 2014, something changed in the law where basically, I won't go into details, but basically it allowed foreign companies to finally come into Mexico and to launch MVNOs. Monopolization laws, external foreign investment into Mexico laws were changed. So lots of companies then started looking at Mexico because on paper, the MVNO space in Mexico was the number one globally. They had like a 90% prepaid to postpaid customer base. So because of that, me and my friend, I became friends with him. We went to go and play golf. We met on the golf course and chatting away. And he thought I was headhunting him, and I wasn't. I just wanted to play golf, which was always a funny story between us. And we became friends. We started a business which was Contra Solutions. It was a consultancy firm that basically helped foreign companies come into Mexico and launch MVNOs. So we basically took care of all of their go-to-market strategy, negotiations with the MNOs and various different things like that. So at that point, it's tech, right? It's MVNO is tech, and specifically in the telecom space. But I really got involved with business planning and understanding what the business needed in order to succeed, and what was their go-to market strategy, and did they have product market fit, and all of that for helping, I think maybe somewhere around 7 to 10 startups come into Mexico and launch their business. That allowed me to get up to speed with that. And we did that for 2 or 3 years. Then I started my own telemedicine company called 2Medic. And whilst I was looking for investment from that company, I was introduced to someone doing the exact same thing, but they had a more radical business model. We ended up joining forces and created a company called Docademic, which we ultimately changed to Doc.com as we grew. And that was actually a Web3, a cryptocurrency-backed company that we grew spectacularly, and then had a spectacular fail at the same time a few years later, which we can talk more about later. And then I went into another telecom space, back into the MVNO space called Oxio, and I was the head of account management there. And then I moved into the cybersecurity space, which is a massively growing industry and really interesting. Yeah. So, that's kind of where I am now. It's a bit of a crazy journey, but here I am.
Yeah, but the journeys are what makes it worthwhile, though, Chris.
Exactly.
That really is, because I think people seem to think when they see somebody in their role or their position or whatever, and they just kind of put them on that pedestal, as it were, and go, oh, that's what Chris does, that's what Gary does, that's what. But really, all that experience comes from a variety of things and a variety of roles that we've done to get to where we are. And I'm just going to go back to where he was, like you just said, about the failing and failing fast, or failing dramatically was the word you used.
Dramatically, yeah. There's a book behind me, blitz scaling. We were blitz scaling. But we were victims of a long crypto winter from 2018 to 2020, and it ultimately bit us in the bum. But yeah, I learned so much from that experience. So,
what was the biggest? Again, you would have learned so much by that, right? Because it was one of those big flash bang, everything's great, and then all of a sudden, it just imploded upon itself. What was the biggest thing, the biggest lesson you learned from that experience?
So I think that for me personally, the biggest thing that I learned is that one, we should have taken advantage of the opportunities when we had them, instead of being we were so confident. It's easy to say afterwards, isn't it? Right? You're thinking, oh, we should have taken more money out of the crypto instead of holding it in and expecting it to grow, and not wanting to affect the confidence of our followers and our community. But in reality, when you look back, we should have been very transparent and honest with our following, and said we need X amount of money in order to grow the company, real money in order to grow the company over the next 3 to 5 years. We should have done that, but that's, again, hindsight's 2020. The other thing I learned from that experience was the importance of strong people, the importance of building a strong team under you, and the importance of having people that keep you accountable, right, and keep you down to earth. That's what we should have done as well. We should have spent significantly more money on investing on the team. We didn't. We kept it. We were too cheap. I think we were too cheap in growing the people, and not really investing in experience and knowledge.
Yeah. Yes, and I hear that quite a bit, through the interviews that I'm doing, through the growth of companies and founders and VPs alike, and my experience as well. When I had my very first company, I remember the day that everyone was saying, you need to get more team members, or the first team member, it's just me and the co-founder, and we're sitting there, and I'm thinking, I can't afford it. I can't afford it. And I don't know if I was just being cheap. I don't know if I was just too scared. But I just remember that thing, no, I can't afford it. Because once I get one team member, I need a team. Then when I get a team, I need new premises. And then this whole big thing, I was thinking, maybe it was like, I felt it was like a deck of cards. It would just all fall down.
All fall down, yeah. No, yeah. And I agree. I think I felt as well, because I was quite young then. I'm still only 39. I'll probably look a bit older with my grey hairs, but that's what kids do to you, Gary. But at the time, I was early 30s, and I I always felt like if I get somebody who clearly has more experience than me or knows more than me, it's like, is it going to put me at risk, right? Are they going to look at me and go, "What the hell is this guy doing?" In that position, because I kind of always felt that as well, which doesn't help. But now I know the importance of having real. Find people under you which are better than you.
Yeah,
Absolutely. And now I have the confidence and I have the experience. But really, what highlighted to me in terms of we could have done better on that front was when I went into Oxio. Now, Oxio was a $40 million Series B fast growth organization. They're still doing very well, growing across Latin America and the US. They have their founders Nico Girard's extremely intelligent and experienced entrepreneur. He's built businesses, sold businesses in the past, various successful exits. And that highlighted to me, this is what we should have been doing,
Yes.
That's what we should have done,
And again, it's those lessons we learn, and sometimes we need someone else to point them out, whether it be verbally or just visually, looking at someone and go, do you know what, they're doing it, should have done it that way. But it's the lessons we learn, as I keep on saying, and failing. When you fail, it's a good thing. People tend to see failure as a bad thing, it's certainly 10, 15 years ago, if you were a failure in business, there was this omen over you that you were a failure, and it's nothing to do with that. It's just,
wrong place, wrong time, right? Wrong place, right time. I don't know if you look at it. I do genuinely look back and think I think it's made me a lot stronger, and I think it's I'm someone who is always critical of myself. I'm always looking at how I can improve things, and if I find that I'm not doing something well, if I find that there's something I need to improve on, I get my head down, I focus, and I get better at it. And that's something that I've learned about myself over the last 15 years, and I think it's one of my biggest selling points with prospective companies.
Yeah, absolutely. My wife says the same thing. She says that there are no failures in life; they're just life lessons. You got to learn from those lessons, and there are only good lessons if you learn from them. Otherwise, it's just a lesson.
What's the old English saying that the grandmothers used to say, Gary? These things are sent to center. These things are sent to what? What's the phrase? What's the phrase now? I had it in my head just a second ago. Test us. These things are sent to test us.
Yeah, these things are sent to test us, and that's what it is. And we grew up like that way, and then think, okay, learn from it and move on. So talking about moving, let's talk about business today. So you already mentioned cybersecurity, massive growth industry, massive growth niche at the moment, But when you couple, I want to also talk about AI when it comes to cybersecurity, because it's one of those things where it doesn't matter who you talk to in tech, there is an element of AI that, good, bad, or indifferent, is there. But a lot of AI challenges would be through transparency, would be through compliance, would be from there. Sure. When it comes to cybersecurity, and obviously with Eden, that you say you work with people from pre-seed to pre-exit, so you're working right across the board with people there. What trends, before we actually get onto AI, what trends are you seeing in the marketplace with regards to cybersecurity that's probably making it a more challenging? We all know it's a growing industry, that's great, but what are the challenges that cybersecurity industry is finding today?
The challenges, I guess the number one challenge you'd find in the cybersecurity industry is that I think any cybersecurity professional will always tell you that they're always one step behind the hackers, which is true. When people think of hackers, most people are going to think one person in their bedroom. They see shows
with a black hoodie like on top, right?
Black hoodie. They see shows like Mr. Robot, and yeah, sure, they do exist. But the majority of hackers, unfortunately, are sort of institutionalized. They're managed by large government. It's been run by China. It's been run by Russia. These are extremely well-funded organizations that have a lot of flexibility and a lot of creativity in how they go about to find vulnerabilities in organizations. There's a huge growth in ransomware. Ransomware is a big deal. I was speaking to a company in the cinema space. Who was telling me that they're very concerned. They're a startup themselves, but they're very concerned that as they have had two competitors just in the last 2 or 3 months have been attacked through ransomware, and if that was to happen to them, And it's clearly being targeted. But if that was to happen to them, they would be done. Even 2 to 3 days having to deal with not being able to run the business or provide the service that their software offers. That they would be done. They would have to close their doors. So it's a huge issue. We're constantly one step behind. From a positive perspective, I think, in terms of trends, Gary, the compliance is a massive thing. Compliance has become table stakes now. It's very easy these days to start up, easier, shall we say, to start up a SaaS company, right? To create some kind of SaaS business and to get it launched. And there's loads of incredible stories of founders who are doing just that. There's so many tools and so many services and AI that's able to help you create a business a lot faster than traditionally it was. But because of that, then imagine you are a SaaS, you've created a SaaS product, you've developed it, you're ready to go. So now it's ready to go. Now we're out of development. I want to get this into the hands of Amazon. I want to get this into the hands of Mercedes. I want to get this into the hands of Microsoft. The first thing they're going to ask you, even if it's the perfect solution for whatever problem they have, they're going to ask you for, are you SOC 2? Are you ISO 27001? Are you respecting and protecting the data, the connections between our systems and yours? Are you taking that seriously? And unless you have that, you just cannot even get through the door these days. So it's now become table stakes, and that used to be table stakes even for enterprise. Now it's flowing downstream. So now it's happening in mid-market. Now many of our customers who are also startups have their own providers, and now they're asking for security questionnaires, and they're asking for SOC 2, and they're asking for this, that, and the other. So it's just become more and more common, and that's really how Even Data have exploded and grown significantly over the last 3 years through compliance, really. So that's our foot in the door, and that's how then we're able to grow into other, more managed cybersecurity, managed vCISO, virtual CISO, and fractional data privacy officer roles.
Yeah, absolutely. Compliance is almost like a shoe-in, isn't it? Compliance is very much, with more compliance, there's more need for things, and people are they're more open to open their doors and sit down and have a chat with you about what it was. Whereas before it's kind of, well, it won't affect me. It doesn't affect me. I don't need it. I'll get round to doing it, like any other choice. So that being said, what would you say is probably one of the biggest misconceptions people have out there when it comes to cybersecurity?
It's a great question. I think, I think one of the biggest misconceptions is how expensive cybersecurity is. It is extremely expensive. It can be extremely expensive. But I think one of the misconceptions is that to really start building, foundational cybersecurity practices and compliance practices, it costs a lot. Actually, the earlier you do it, the cheaper it is. The bigger you get, the more complexity you have in your business, the more employees you have, the more departments and systems and processes that you need to consider. And with more systems and with more employees, ultimately the risk factors increase. So the sooner you start getting your fundamentals in place, the better and the cheaper it's going to be for you to then build on that as you grow. So I think that's probably the one thing I see most with customers. We speak to many customers that are even still in stealth mode to founders, but we also speak to startups, scale-ups that are in the 200, 300, 400, 500 employees, and they're really just starting that journey. And then they realize, how much that's going to be and what's required, to implement a mobile device manager, for example, or an antivirus for a 10-person company is drastically different than for a 500-person company. So that's kind of
again, it's sort of the uneducated to a degree. They're not quite sure that they're taking information from all sources that they shouldn't do, and just coming up with this one conclusion that it's too expensive, it's too much hassle, it's maybe not yet, And also, and I think another misconception is how much it affects the development of your business, right? I think a lot of people are looking at cybersecurity as something that's ultimately going to put pauses on the speed of growth, your blitz scaling, how fast you're able to grow and develop.
and you want to stay agile. And that's not necessarily the case. That's why we exist, and we specialize in startups. So we know that what their mindset is. We know that what's important to them is that they continue to exist in 6 months and in 12 months. For them, for startups, for a 50-person company, their objective, their priority isn't to have the world-class cybersecurity processes and tools and solutions all in place. What they care about is being able to sell their product, having a strong go-to-market fit, having strong go-to-market strategy, having a product-market fit. That's what matters to them.
Yeah.
So we make sure that we're aligning with whatever their needs are as they're growing.
Yeah, perfect. So with that being said, this is the challenge that they're having, or the misconceptions when it comes to obviously in your role in revenue growth and whatnot. If business was plain sailing, it'll be fantastic, but it never is. What are you seeing as your common day challenges? What is your biggest challenge when it comes to client acquisition, revenue growth today?
We're very lucky in that we have strong partnerships that have been developed over a long period of time, and we spent a lot of effort and a lot of time and a lot of resources on making sure that we have that it's reciprocal, and we work very well with our partners. I think the biggest challenge, though, Gary, is around a race to the bottom. When there's an opportunity, on the market like we're in, and we're very lucky to be in, then inherently you're going to have competitors coming to the market that are offshoring this, that are low quality in that, and that are cutting corners here. And they're going to race to the bottom. They're going to drop the price and keep dropping the price in order to win market share. And we constantly find ourselves in a battle. We've actually managed to stick to our guns and to say, look, that's fine if you want to go to a lower quality. And very often they come back to us 6 months later and say, you're absolutely right. But we do find situations where 1 month is one newcomer, and then 6 months later we see another newcomer, and we just stick to our guns. And we keep showing it through quality, and we keep showing it through as we continue. If we continue to do a good job with our customers, and continue growing with our customers, then ultimately that will just be shown in the market, and we don't have to then shout about it. We're able just to show it through the deliverable, shall we say?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think that's probably the biggest thing.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more there, Chris, because again, going back on my previous experience when I was growing my company, I deliberately did not want to be competing with what I call the sharper pencil. My mentor told me, if you're going to compete on price, someone's always going to have a better sharpener, and they're always going to be able to get their little pencil down to the little rubber or a razor at the bottom. You just don't want to be there. And you're absolutely right. If we can stick to our guns and show through quality, show through value, they do come back. And actually, from a very selfish point of view, I've got to say, I thoroughly enjoy it when they come back and go, hey,
it's the best. It's the best.
Remember me? It's like...
you kind of sort of I told you so. One of those. And also, on the compliance side, for example, we've had customers go with other firms, go with cheap auditors. That's a big one. Say SOC 2, and there's many auditors out there. There's great quality auditors that going to get good work, it's a bit more expensive, and then there's cheap that are offshoring. And the amount of times that we've heard customers come to us because they've had their SOC 2 report thrown out by an enterprise business that they're trying to do business with. And again, it's one of the things, you pay peanuts, you get monkeys.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that one of the lessons here, that for those listening here, is that especially for founders and founders in tech, when you have built your baby and it's yours, and now you don't want to be the best kept secret and you want to get it out there, you've probably done your MVP anyway, so it actually works. But this is the time where you've got to stick to your guns and say, yes, I want it out there, but I don't want to be seen as the cheapest, because once you're seen in that competitive slope, it's really hard to climb back up. You know?
It's challenging to put your prices back up.
Yeah, exactly.
And to explain that away, it's challenging. So it's better just to try to hold your guns. And if the market changes, if the market shifts, then the market shifts. But you may well find yourself in 3 months, 4 months down the line, you think, okay, well, that was just a blip.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and know your value. I think is like, listen to you, Chris. You're very proud of the mission and what you can do and stuff like that. And I think those listening have really got to understand the value you bring and what is it that you're coming to the market with, as opposed to just the commodity. And it's we all know it is common sense, but common sense isn't common practice. It's
Right.
easier to, I'm now fighting against Fred and I've got to get that deal because the deals are important. But it's like doing a deal with the devil, because once you've done that deal, you've set the precedent, and the best thoughts in the world go, I'll put it back up next time. You won't, because you've just told yourself that it's okay to deal at that price. So I think that's
Exactly.
a really, really good point that you just made there, Chris.
Yeah, no, it's definitely the one that I think that's the biggest challenge that we see. But yeah, no, absolutely.
Well, let's move on to AI, because I think AI, as I said, specifically when it comes to cybersecurity, one of the things that I'm certainly hearing from colleagues in the field, from the interviews I'm doing, and some of my clients, you already said it a little bit earlier on. We're always behind. We're always behind, and we just got to play catch up all the time. That's the nature of the beast. That's the nature of the industry in cybersecurity. But with AI moving so quickly, with it growing so quickly, how is the cybersecurity industry coming to terms and dealing with, well, hold on a second, we're meant to be governing that, but it's learning from that and it's growing again, and we're gonna keep doing the catch up. How is the cybersecurity industry dealing with AI? What type of conversations are you having out there about AI?
So firstly we deal with. I've seen a big growth in the last, say, 6 to 9 months. I've seen a massive growth in new AI companies, new AI startups, leveraging large language models, doing some incredible things with AI. So, it's pretty much, in terms of the companies that we manage, the companies, the startups coming into the space. I mean, we're going to see a huge growth in new startups. New tech startups, so that's definitely something to look out for. From an AI, from a cybersecurity perspective, AI is both helping protect companies from cyber threats, and it's also helping cyber threats become more, more, shall we say? So, it's difficult to say at the moment. We're seeing a growth in. We know that compliance frameworks are coming out around ISO 42001 and NIST AI. These are two of the biggest frameworks out there that are bringing out their AI compliance, and we've had a lot of interest from companies looking to implement that and to grow their compliance in around AI. So, but yeah, in terms of cybersecurity, we'll see improved response capabilities. We'll see fraud detection and prevention increase and be a bit more robust. But yeah, we'll see AI have an effect on the different risks and the different challenges that we are facing in
it's
AI.
almost like a cat and mouse, isn't it?
It is. It's going to bolster both sides. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. You've got to keep that balance all the time without it tipping one side or the other. And I think it's a fascinating space to be watching over the course of the next couple of years.
It's kind of like giving two medieval armies rifles for the first time. It's kind of like that. It's we'll see how it pans out, but it's early days, and I will put my hands up. I'm a sales guy now. Sales guys are very good at talking around it and pretending to be experts, and we're still learning. But the real experts at Eden Data are the guys all behind me. We hire almost exclusively from the big fours of the world, and a lot of ex-US military cybersecurity folks, a lot of ex-CPAs, and those are the guys with the actual expertise. That'll work with our customers and provide this kind of information. From my perspective, I speak to companies all day, every day, founders, technical founders, CTOs, VPs of engineering who are kind of dealing with these challenges.
But they're certainly on the lips, of as you say, of the founders and CTOs and things like that. I can say, this is a threat that we may not have yet, but I can see it coming down the road. What are you guys doing to prevent that? Is it a thing? So I can imagine those conversations that you were having on a daily basis. Yeah,
the conversations I have most are with companies that utilize LLMs, and they want to be able to. They want to make sure that whatever product they have created that utilizes those large language models and Gen AI is their product is protected, so that when they're selling it to enterprise businesses, the enterprise company is saying, well, that's too much of a risk. So you want to cover the protection around that product. That's primarily the conversations I'm having.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, I totally understand that. So
I don't have that many conversations with organizations that are worried about AI. Actually,
Okay.
it's more the other way. Most of the conversations I have, it's that companies are utilizing it, they're using it to grow their business, and they're typically the conversations we have.
Yeah. So I want to segue on to what you just said now, be about the sales guy. Tech is not necessarily known for best sales acumen or the best sales ability to do so. That they get really involved in what they're doing in their baby, and and just think, if I build it, they will come. And to think, yeah, it's so great. We're going to be brilliant at it. What are the attributes or advice you can give to people in tech who are either just starting up or are down a journey but just can't get any traction when it comes to getting their product or their service out there?
I think one of the most important things that I've learned in my career is really understanding and believing in your product. If there's even the slightest bit of doubt, that's going to come across in your sales. That's going to come across in your pitch. That's going to come across in all conversations. So that's the first thing. If you're dealing with any doubt, if you're dealing with any uncertainty, or you feel like this product or service is not adding any value, or not adding the value that is being sold or is being marketed, I think you want to take a hard look at yourself and where you are, and potentially look to find a product that you do believe in and that you are interested in. I started supporting, actually funny enough, I heard about Eden Data originally when I was driving to Mexico City from where I live, and I listened to a podcast called, I think it was My First Million, something like that, and they mentioned Eden Data on the podcast. Just briefly mentioned what they did. I caught my attention. I went on their website and I chatted with the chatbot. I said, "Hey, look, I'm in cybersecurity and I support and consult for startups in Mexico. I might be able to help open a few doors." And that's how I got connected to Taylor, the CEO. And at the time, so Eden Data is a bootstrapped company. They're a 3.5-year-old business, entirely bootstrapped, done incredibly well, growing incredibly fast through the efforts of Taylor Herson. And Taylor was dealing with all of the sales, everything. If we're talking SDR, account management, account executive, customer success, you name it, he was dealing with it. Partners. And after I supported him for 2 to 3 months, making some introductions into VCs in Mexico and a few startups, and really got to know more about Taylor, about the business, about the sales KPIs, about what they were selling, about where their customers came from, of all of these different their sales cycle, their average ACV. I learned all of these KPIs, and I thought, I have to work there. This is a salesperson industry, and I need to be there. And I ended up, he wasn't thinking of hiring any salesperson. I ended up creating a 7-page dossier of why he should consider hiring a VP of sales, and what he should do instead, and what I should be doing. And I sent it over to him, and he accepted it, and here I am a year later. So my point here of telling that story is, find a company that you believe in, the product that you believe in, and a leadership team that you believe in, and do everything you can to get in there, because you're going to have success in that company. You're not necessarily going to have success in just some random company you found on LinkedIn that is is looking for a salesperson, and it's a product that you don't know anything about. So yeah, make an effort on that front.
That's a great piece of advice, and I think you're absolutely right there. And whether people realise it or not, that especially in tech, if anywhere between 5 to 15 million, revenue per year, it's still usually founder-led sales, even at that level. So there's a tremendous opportunity for people who want to get into tech sales there, just to alleviate the founder and let them concentrate on more needle-moving, needle-pushing things, and you can have a fantastic career. And I think that's a really good story to neighbour that point.
And I think, know where you add value, right? Really understand where, what type of company, not just the industry, not just the sector or the kind of product, also where they are in their journey, right? Are you a 1 to 50 employee? Are you a 1 to 10, right? Are you a 10 to 50? Are you a 50 to 200? Are you a 200 to 1,000? I think it's really important to understand really where you add value. And I can tell you, I love the 1 to maybe 150 FTE range. As a leader, as soon as I have an HR team asking me for 17 case studies in order to make one hire, and that's going to take 9 months. I'm like, not for me. So then I know that there's somebody better that can take my place. I know there's someone better that can take a company from 200 employees to 2,000. Right? That's a different person. That's a different mindset. I like dealing with chaos. I like dealing with organizing chaos and building a team. Wearing multiple hats, that's me. So I think, anyone listening to this, I think it's important that you really take a look at yourself and so where am I adding value? What's important for me? What's the type of company that I want to be in? Do I want to be in a multi-layered sales function, or do I want to be trying to do everything,
Yeah, and I think that that's a very, very good point there. Knowing your place and where do you slot in, right? That little toy that we used to have as kids, the plastic one, the squares and the triangles and the stars and circles. You're still a piece of the toy, but you fit in somewhere and you don't fit in anywhere else, and to know what that is really, really important. And I'm glad you mentioned that. So, Chris, I can't believe where the time has gone. It's just gone so quickly. It's been, absolutely fabulous. Yeah. So thank you for sharing your insights on that. But I've got one last question for you. It's kind of a loaded question. I like to ask a loaded question.
Sure.
They said your late 30s. You've had a great career. Bouncing's the wrong word, but literally putting your foothold on different places,
a lot of up and down.
Up and down to get to where you want. Yeah. So if you could look back at your younger self, and I know you shared about being recruitment, and I totally agree with you. My son left university and then went to work as recruitment headhunting in London for the banking industry. So I totally agree with you. It's a great place to cut your teeth when it comes to learning how to sell. But that being said, with you looking back now, what one piece of advice would you give your younger self, knowing what you know now?
Very good question. I would say it's a good question, and I should have spent a bit of time probably thinking about that. Let me have a think. I would say spend a bit more time in the organisations. Don't jump for the money. That was probably one of the first things I would say, especially at the recruitment phase. I have a lot of friends and a lot of ex-colleagues one of my old friends from about 22 years ago, he and I started in recruitment space, and I jumped for money. I did very well at the beginning, and I was very successful, and I knew this was for me, and I kept on having headhunters come and poach me and offer me that just a little bit more money, another 2,000, another 5,000, whatever it is, and I kept on jumping for that. And I always remember that he stuck to his guns, and he ended up in, when I found myself in Mexico and trying to decide whether I wanted to change industries. He was managing director of his own firm in the UK, and although I wouldn't change positions, I think that's one of the things I did look back on and think that's something I could have done differently. Aside of that, I'm not sure. I don't think I would change that much, though, Gary. I'm not sure. In terms of advice, is one thing, but I've always been very confident. Even through the lows, I've always felt that I would come through and find success. Because I've been very confident of my own abilities, and I think if I was to say anything to myself 20 years ago, I would say just believe in yourself. Just make sure you don't lose that belief, and keep moving forward. Keep taking risks.
Yeah, I think I think that what a great note to end on that one. I think is keep believing in yourself. There's going to be bad times. There's going to be lulls. There's going to be times you fall flat on your face, as you said. This up and down journey that we have, but you don't have to stay there. You can bounce back up again. And that part of bouncing is belief. Have the belief in you that you can actually do that.
Yeah, risk. Taking risk is very important. I think fortune favors the brave, and I feel like I've tried to walk that path in my life and not been too conservative. That's why I'm in Mexico, I guess.
It is. Well, Chris, it's been absolutely fascinating talking to you. I thoroughly enjoyed it. If people want to get hold of you, want to know a little bit more about cybersecurity, how you guys can help them, or just to get to know you, where's the best place to get hold of you?
I guess too, I'm quite easy to find on LinkedIn. You can either search for Chris Parker or Eden Data, and you'll find me quite easily. Alternative, my email address is chris@edendata.com. So always happy to connect with anyone.
Brilliant. Well, I'll make sure I put those, especially your LinkedIn profile and stuff like that, links on the show notes
Appreciate
further
it.
down from that. So, but Chris, thank you very much for your time once again. It's been an absolute pleasure spending time with you and another fellow Brit as well, which really helps
I
from doing
know.
that. Yeah.
That was a nice surprise when we first got on a call. We said, yes, I always like it when I speak to a Brit.
Excellent. Well, all the very best to you, Chris. Thank you very much for your time. And thank you guys for sharing this episode with us. And if you've got anything out of it, even if it's just one insight or one nugget from what Chris has managed to share with us today, make sure you do one of four things, or all four if you can, which is make sure you like, make sure you comment, make sure you subscribe, but more importantly, make sure you share. So until next time, thank you very much for joining us. Chris, appreciate your time, mate. It's been really, really good knowing you. We'll stay in touch, no doubt. And so until the next time, goodbye. Goodbye, Chris. See you later.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
guys.